Hi, welcome to PH Insights presented by the Pulmonary Hypertension Association. Join us as we delve into patient stories, healthcare updates, and the latest insights on pulmonary hypertension. Thank you to our platform sponsor, J&J, for their unrestricted support of PH Insights. Sponsors do not endorse or participate in the development of program content.
Hi, welcome to PH Insights. I'm Jenna Olitsky, also known online as @Traveling Without Boundaries, and I'm guest hosting this episode to talk to you about something that combines my love for travel and my journey with pulmonary arterial hypertension and hereditary hemorrhagic telangiectasia. I have always known that hereditary hemorrhagic telangiectasia, or HHT, runs in my family for generations, but I was genetically tested in my early teens for a formal diagnosis. My journey to a diagnosis of PAH, though, was not as simple. Starting in 2017, while in the best shape of my life, going to spin and yoga classes daily while training for half marathons, I would get out of breath or faint after walking up a flight of stairs. I went to an internist who dismissed these episodes, which led to a delay in testing due to insurance issues based on her evaluation. In 2018, I had another doctor push for a bubble echo to be covered by my insurance company, which eventually led to a formal diagnosis of PAH. While it completely changed my lifestyle and habits, but one thing I was determined to not let my diagnosis affect was my love of travel. Through research and lots of trial and error, I learned how to travel safely, with doctor approval, of course, and easier for not only myself, but my companions as well. My first tip number one, is to use a med bag. A medical bag or a med bag is a bag that carries all your medication, supplies, devices, and assistive equipment that is necessary for continuous use. A med bag is not only helpful to have all that you need in one central location to grab and go as you need, but it can also be helpful to prepare for any travel day or traveling for multiple days if needed. So, what goes into this med bag? This may vary depending on what type of medication you use. You may have many different oral medications and pill bottles to pack. Not only do you need that medication, but you need all the supplies that go along with it, such as tubing, inserters, syringes, and more to run smoothly. There may be other items that you might need for everyday usage or items that you need for those just in case moments or emergencies. For example, I always pack in my med bag medical scissors, alcohol wipes, bandages, pain gels, and more, just to make sure I'm always prepared. A med bag is an easy way to have all that you need in just one bag and not scattered throughout many bags. Like many, I'm an overpacker, and before using a med bag, I would get frustrated trying to pack all my clothes into a carry-on or checked luggage bag, along with my medications and supplies. Or worse, during travel, I would lose my supplies in the mess of all my clothing. A med bag now allows for me to have all that I need separately and organized by my needs, and able to locate them in a pinch. It cuts down on the stress of trying to locate something since you know at least where everything should be. Additionally, with a med bag, you can also plan for the amount of time you are gone for and what you will need, along with some extras if available. So you're always prepared ahead of time and not worried if you have enough for a trip. My next tip is for those who will be traveling by plane. So tip number 2 are the tips for plane travel and preparing to make flying less intimidating and less stressful. When I was first diagnosed, I tried to stay off the internet like most of us do, but I'm only human and saw that most people stated that they would no longer fly because of the stress of air travel or managing all their medications. I was determined to try to make this as smooth as possible to not interrupt my travel. So this is what I've learned along the way. Pre-planning your flight is the best way to eliminate many of the stressors that come with traveling before you even arrive at the airport. This helps ease much of the day of travel, not only for yourself, but those you may be traveling with. Whenever I'm about to book a flight, I look at two things before I even book my ticket: the seat and if there's a layover. For the seat, I want to make sure that the seat is available for on the flight that will give me the most comfort. And I'm not talking about first class or main cabin here. While things can change from when you book to when you actually travel, I try to think ahead about the length of the flight, time of the flight, and what I will need from a seat. I'll look if there are seats that are available that will allow for me to get up easily, like an aisle seat, or what side of the seat is available if I have my sub-Q site in a certain side. Additionally, on many plane websites, you can check to see if they have physical plugs at the seat or if they only have USB plugs. This can come in handy if you need to plug in your pump remote, for example, or need to plug in other devices as well. Additionally, don't fret if your flight does not allow for you to pre-select your seat online. In many cases for medical conditions, you can call the airline and they can assign you a specific seat ahead of time, or with open seating plane options, they can give you a ticket at the gate as well. My next step before booking a flight is to look into the flight itself. Is there a nonstop option or direct option, or will you need a layover? If you need a layover, will you have enough time to get to your next date in a reasonable fashion? You do not want to be rushing to your next gate if there's any type of delay or if the gate is on the other side of the airport. I always recommend at least an hour between each plane ride so you do not hurt yourself trying to get to your next location. If you're going to start traveling more or have upcoming flights in advance, I highly recommend looking into enrolling in TSA PreCheck. TSA PreCheck is a program that allows certain travelers to go through an expedited security screening process for domestic and some international flights after an interview process. Typically, there is a dedicated security line and screening procedure for those who have the PreCheck system. With those of us who are traveling with multiple medications or have sub-Q devices, TSA PreCheck makes it for such a smoother travel day. And as a tip, most time your application can be covered by a credit card perk. Once you've pre-planned your flight, then it's getting ready to travel. I already talked a little bit about med bags previously, but med bags are extremely important for any type of plane travel. Not only are they helpful for organization, like noted in tip number 1, but the Department of Transportation and other worldwide similar organizations recognize med bags as a non-carry-on item as long as they contain life-sustaining medication and supplies. That means you can have all of your medical items and supplies in a separate bag while still having a carry-on and personal item available to you on the plane. Oftentimes, this is how I travel, or if I check a bag, I'll only bring my med bag on board with me with a small purse for an even easier travel day. Either option is not only helpful to overpackers, like me, but also if you need an item during the flight so you're not having to rifle through clothing or other packed items to get your medicine or supplies. While a med bag can be any bag of any size that fits in the overhead bin, I personally have my med bag as one that can fit easily under the seat, so I can always have access to it no matter the size of the plane as well. Whether you are going to a location of higher altitude or need supplemental oxygen when you have a concentrated oxygen machine, checking for oxygen has to be done in a certain manner for best protection. When I travel to places of higher altitude, which is admittedly few and far between now, I want to ensure that my oxygen is packed securely and within airline regulations. It's helpful to look into a hard carrying case that has wheels in order to check your oxygen to your destination. Now that you have pre-planned, packed, and arrived at the airport, you hopefully can zip through TSA as well. Pre-boarding allows for those who need extra time on the jet bridge for any medical reason or mobility issue to board the plane first. This also allows for those who carry a med bag to ensure that the bag is able to make it on the plane. So, no matter your boarding group, you're able to ensure that you have the extra time and space needed. Different airlines have different boarding procedures, so it's important to ask at check in or ahead of time to see what you need to do in order to pre board. Some are as simple as boarding when called, but others will make you update your ticket as well. While plane travel may not be easy, with or without medical conditions, these tips can help for a smoother plane travel day. The same amount of preparation is needed even if you travel by car. That is why tip number 3 covers tips for those who will be traveling by car. There are some similarities, but also some important differences to note. If you haven't picked up by now, a med bag is very handy for all travel situations, including car trips of any length. Having your supplies in a go bag ready for any emergency or situation that needs attention so that you do not have to derail your trip is invaluable. Personally, I live in Orange County where traffic is high. Whenever I go somewhere that may be 30 minutes away, I pack my med bag into my car. If, for example, I have a pump malfunction or run out of sub Q earlier than expected, I have all of my supplies right there and I don't have to turn around and risk my health. It's easy to store in your trunk and not have to worry about it and go upon your trip as planned. A big concern with car travel versus plane travel is what to do with temperature controlled medication. This can be one of the hardest things to plan for when traveling by car, but don't worry, there are always ways to prepare. There are medication coolers that keep the cooler at a certain temperature that either plug directly into your AC power outlet or by USB in your car. This way, no matter if you're traveling by cool or hot weather, your medicine is not affected. There are also small enough coolers that fit in, yes, your med bag, that allow for you to connect to an outlet at home or your lodging, charge it up, and then keep it continuously cool by an ice pack, and then charge it later that day when you get to your destination. This is my typical go to when traveling outside my home for any type of travel. When on the road for any length of time, when you're away from your normal outlet, this is something you also have to be prepared for different scenarios, like how to keep something cool, how to keep your pump plugged in, for example. It's important to keep your car stocked with alternative ways to charge these items up. There are 3 I constantly use in my car. 1, a large inverter that plugs into my AC outlet that will have multiple plugs to use in the car. 2, a portable USB charger that plugs directly into a device. And 3, multiple USB cords for any type of situation. For my next tip, I want to focus on general suggestions that have made traveling so much easier with PH. Some tips are ones that you may or may not have thought about before the situation arises. So, for tip number 4, here are some helpful tips I have learned along the way for a smoother travel overall. When you are looking into lodging for your trip, whether that's a hotel or a third party, you want to be conscious of the environment and location, such as, does this location have an elevator? Are there stairs I'll need to climb with my luggage to get into my room or into the home? Is this location even close to where I want to be, or will I be having to do a lot of walking to get to these locations? Pre planning your location will save a lot of time and stress down the road. It also can be very fun. You can filter on third party sites when booking to show only hotels that have elevator access. Or if booking directly on a hotel site, you can call and ask about their elevator situation. On third party sites, they have a disability section where you could select no stairs or minimal stairs, as well as an elevator only option in staying in a location that has one. Looking around the location when booking for hotspots is a fun way to plan, but also minimize your stress about how to get around. You can make sure that it's in a location that is not too far away and is centralized to what you would like to do, as well as to public transportation or car services easily. One of the most helpful things I have found while traveling is using my disability placard while traveling abroad and throughout the U.S. All U.S. states will recognize another state's disability placard. However, they may have different parking rules. So it's very helpful to look up ahead of time to know where to park with no issues. You don't want to get towed or a ticket while traveling. Additionally, a US-based placard can be used abroad. All you have to do is some research ahead of your trip to the country you will be visiting and go to their disability parking section and look what you will need in order to legally use your placard while visiting. For example, last year I went to Australia for a road trip on the Great Ocean Drive. I looked into Australia's policies for US-based placards and what they would need to make sure that I could use mine while there. All they said is I needed my placard itself, along with any documentation from the DMV and where I could park in certain locations. This made the trip so much smoother getting to use what I knew at home while traveling abroad. When you are traveling away from home, it can also be scary to know that you're away from family, caregivers, or your medical team as well. Pre-planning not only where PH centers are located near your trip can ease some of that fear, knowing that if something what could go wrong, you'll know where to go. You can look this up on the PHA website for those sites. Additionally, if traveling abroad, it can ease your mind, and probably your families too, to get travel health insurance prior to your trip. Many are low cost, and having a pre-existing condition does not disqualify you automatically. Typically, you do need to purchase 14 days after booking your trip for the best cost for those with medical conditions. Finally, I would suggest for any trip, whether planning for yourself, a child, or anyone else, to always consult your medical team and let them know that you are planning a trip, your departure date, and the length of your trip. It can be as easy as emailing or calling your doctor or putting a message through MyChart. They can give you great insight for where you will be going, give advice for your travel, know a doctor in the area, and any other additional testing that may be needed to ease your mind. For example, altitude can be a big problem for those of us with PH. When I was invited to 2 events in Colorado, one in Breckenridge, which has an altitude of 9,000 feet, and another in Estes Park, which has an altitude of 8,000 feet, I contacted my doctor before my travels. He suggested doing altitude testing to make sure it was safe for me to go to those altitudes and for the length of time I would be gone. I did the altitude testing, which proved that 9,000 was probably unsafe for me to be at, but 8,000 was safe for a short amount of time. It can be disappointing not to go to certain events, but it's also better to be safe than sorry and have these additional testings and doctor's advice as well. Also, you can ask for altitude testing for plane travel as well, which can be helpful if you're preparing for your first plane ride and for how long you'll be in the air. These tips have helped me and those I travel with so much, and hopefully now you too. Additionally, PHA also has the Empowered Patient Toolkit that provides additional information to consider while traveling with PH. I hope this podcast encourages you and inspires you to travel more, especially this summer. Thank you for letting me guest host, and thank you for listening.
And thank you for listening to PH Insights presented by the Pulmonary Hypertension Association. Remember to subscribe and to join us every second and fourth Wednesday of the month for more valuable insights. And thank you to J&J for their unrestricted support of PH Insights.